There we go. All right. Okay, so I mentioned my path to where I am. So I went to Alabama State University, small school in Montgomery. I think roughly we had about 20 math majors when I was there. The graduating class was like 5 of us. So really small and intimate classes. And at that point, I loved math in high school. And I was like, okay, this is something I'm interested in. So that's what I decided to get my bachelor's degree in. This is just a picture of me and my twin sister at graduation. I've had several colors of hair throughout time. And this is when I chose honey blonde at that time. So that was undergraduate. And then I came to Virginia Tech, still had the blonde there. And I was actually at a conference and I never thought about coming to Virginia Tech, but I met someone at an event who let me know about the different graduate programs. And I was intrigued because at that point, a mathematician, everyone was like, you're not the traditional mathematician. You're interested in everything. And you're like, cool. And you like biology and you like so many things. And I felt like, if the person can make it sound appealing enough, I'll be interested in that project or that class. Like I was that student, like, oh, that's an interesting topic. Let me learn more about this and that. And it never really fit quite into a box. So when I was looking at graduate programs, I wanted a program that allowed me to explore what I was interested in. So the genetics, bioinformatics, and computational biology program allowed me to do that. So I won't go into what my dissertation was on or anything like that, but it really combined bioinformatics, mathematical modeling, and also had the opportunity to do some lab work. So those of you interested in like biology and pre-med, I learned how to do cell culture, things, again, I had no experience in. I worked with $1 million machines throughout my career as a researcher, and I was always frightened that I would break it. But it was a great experience to learn different skills. So I am a BT alum, finished there. So once I finished graduate school, I went to UNC Chapel Hill to do a postdoc position. And that's considered another training step of where you sort of explore what you're interested in. And at that point, I still worked in the field of airway inflammation, but I also had opportunity to teach. So I get to teach at a small college in Charlotte. I mentioned Chapel Hill, so yes, I drove back and forth from Chapel Hill to Charlotte to teach. But it was a great way to me really see that I really enjoyed engagement with students. And once I kind of thought about my career to this point, at this point, it's been really school and education. I was like, I really like students. Like, I know I was a student, so I like myself, but I'm like, I really enjoy meeting new people and letting them know the path that they need to take to reach their goals. So I kind of had this shift happening right after my postdoc. That's why I mentioned the path can always be your own. There's not really a set kind of a recipe to follow for any career goal that you may have. So even if you want to do something that someone may say, that's a little left field for you to do, even if your education hasn't aligned directly to that, it's really about the experiences you have, the networks that you make, and how you're able to kind of sell yourself. So after I left UNC Chapel Hill, I did not know I was coming back. I came back to Virginia Tech. If you had told me at graduation that I would be back at Virginia Tech, I would have said, that's not happening, you know. I enjoyed my time in the mountains and I was like city life, and I came back to Blacksburg, okay? So when I came back, I did education programs and outreach. I love working with K through 12. I'm really getting youth excited about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So it was that engagement. It was working with the parents, reassuring the parents that their kids were fine, and making things exciting. And I'm one of those people who always had enthusiasm. So I was like, I can make this bottled water sound exciting if you need me to. So I enjoyed doing the outreach. And then I switched positions and came to the graduate school almost 2 years ago to lead the Office of Recruitment, Diversity, and Inclusion. So it's kind of another dimension of outreach where I serve students, not just here in Blacksburg, but also all of our other campus locations. So I roughly have about 6,500 students that I am sort of responsible for in some capacity to help provide support to them. Working through the stages of recruitment to graduation. So that's what I mentioned. If you all are interested in Virginia Tech, or even if it's not Virginia Tech, and I know that's the case sometimes for students who've had their undergraduate experience here. I do always tell students though, for those who did do their undergrad experience here and are considering Virginia Tech for grad school, know that those experiences will be completely different. The numbers of students that you see for undergrad is the complete opposite for graduate school. If you think about the research groups, you think about the class sizes, everything is much smaller, more intimate. You have a whole team of specialized staff to support you as a graduate student. So undergraduate, I know it may seem a little different because, again, the large numbers, but on our campus here, we have roughly 4,000 students. So I know several of our graduate students because I have the opportunity to meet them on several occasions. So why grad school? I know some of you mentioned you were unsure. I think it was about half and half. Some of you were like, yes, I want to do grad school. And the other half was like, maybe let me know more about it, right? So grad school is a great option if you're interested in conducting research. Now, research looks a lot of different ways. You may be interested in something more experimental. You may want to do research as it relates to human studies, or you might want something that's a blend of something that you're like, I'm not even sure if it's a good fit. And if that's the case, then definitely we can set up a time to meet, and I can go through the variety of different programs that we offer. We offer over 170 graduate programs. So I like to kind of meet intimately with students to kind of get an idea, or prospective students, I should say, to get an idea of, what would be cool to you? Like, what would you want a degree in? And don't think it's something so far-fetched, because we do have individualized PhDs at Virginia Tech. We have interdisciplinary PhDs. You may want a master's degree. You may want a master's in education. It can look, again, a lot of different ways. And I think the traditional path that, if you notice when, again, I told you my background, I don't have a master's degree. So I went from bachelor's to PhD. So that was my experience. And yes, pros and cons, right? I came to grad school at 22. I told them I gave Blacksburg my best years, right? Other people sometimes take time to work. They may have other internships and research experiences and then go to grad school at a different stage. We have grad students that range in age from 18 to over 70. So again, it's based on the timing that's right for you and when you feel you're ready to pursue that graduate education. Sometimes grad school is a good option if you're thinking about employment in a given field. If you're in engineering, sometimes a master's level is the highest education that you need. Sometimes you can do it with a bachelor's degree. Again, it's sort of field specific. Some of you may want to teach or not, right? So maybe like, I have this great professor I met in a class and I really aspire to be in the classroom. That's a great reason to think about going to graduate school. Also, if you want to prepare for leadership positions, I know it's easy to kind of blend in as an undergraduate because so many people, but as a grad student, we really know who our leaders are. The ones who come in the classroom who say, I want to help lead this lecture, or I want to lead this organization. So it's a great way for you to figure out what some of those skills are and how to improve on them. Now, higher lifetime income, depends on what field you do, to be quite honest. But I always let people know the motivation should not be the income. It really should be the passion and what you enjoy doing. I always tell students, like, if you don't think Virginia Tech is right for you, or any school that you're applying to, then don't apply. You want to make sure when you apply to a graduate school and to a graduate program, that that's a school you would want to go to if you're admitted. And there's several reasons for that. It's not free or cheap to apply to a graduate program. So you want to make sure that it's somewhere that you can see yourself thriving in if you get admitted into that program. And I'm going to say if, we're going to say when you get admitted into that program. So choosing a grad school, identify your academic interests. Think about, like, what do you really enjoy? Do you like more one-on-one instruction? Do you like larger class sizes? Do you like, maybe there's field work involved? Do they have curriculums that you kind of are more flexible, that you can pick certain tracks? A lot of programs are kind of structuring themselves that way, where students can have focus areas. So it may not be under the full name of the program, but it may be underneath there something that you're interested in, those specializations. Research the programs, not the school. So you may say, I absolutely do not want to go to Virginia Tech, or I absolutely want to go to Virginia Tech, right? Whatever one, make sure that they have the program that you want. There's nothing worse than going by a school, picking a school, and they do not have a program you're interested in. I mean, some people may say, my dream is to go to Harvard, or my dream is to go to Yale. That's great. Unless, if they don't have the program you're interested in, don't think you're going to come in and create that program. I have a few students that like to try that. That's not it. Don't do that. Make sure that they have the program that you're interested in. And find faculty who share your interests. If you're interested in art design or community outreach, and you see they only have 2 faculty out of 20 who work in that area, make sure those 2 faculty have room for another student, because again, you want to make sure that your experience is going to be a valuable one. See what typical students look like in the program. I'm always happy to answer that question. And I know sometimes you can't find that online. And so when I meet with students, I really try to give you the confidence to apply. Sometimes some people tend to exclude ourselves, right, before even knowing if we can be admitted or not. We say, oh, they require a 3.0 GPA. I'm not going to apply to the program. You can still apply to the program if you have below a 3.0 GPA at Virginia Tech. We do holistic admissions because we believe students are more than just a number. Okay, so don't let GPA be the factor that stops you because you have so many other valuable qualifications beyond GPA, right? Things happen, life happen. Maybe you took a standardized test and your scores aren't competitive to what other students have made typically in that program. It's still okay. You still can apply to the program. So I just want to put that out there. Like I did okay on the GRE, but where I really excelled was honestly when they read my personal statement, my letters from my recommendations, and they were like, oh, wow, this you had a good GPA as well. But on my GRE, I just did like average. Verbal, I had a tutor for that. I was like, I don't use these words ever, but I'll try to learn what they mean just from this test, right? You know, I'm like, I can say y'all, right? So again, you're not defined by standardized testing, and I still finished my PhD in 5 years, and it's not based on what I made on the GRE, okay? So make sure that you're open-minded about that and don't exclude yourself, all right? Visit the website to understand the focus of the program. So a lot of information is online, and if you can't find it, don't worry. Tech has a lot of web pages and a lot of sub web pages. If you need help finding it, please know it is not a problem. I will help guide you to where the information is. And if I need to connect you with the programs, I work closely with those program directors and coordinators. And so I can get the information for you. And visit the campus is not really applicable because, well, you sort of can visit campus. But if you need to know about a particular campus site, maybe you're interested in our Northern Virginia campus. Maybe you're interested in Roanoke, the program that you're looking at. So I can make sure that you at least see virtually at least what that would look like, or speak to a student, for instance, that is part of that program or with that campus location. So applying to grad school, so I always tell students there's two deadlines, right? You have the priority deadline, and then you have the deadline that is the latest you can apply. You always want to aim for that priority deadline. That is important because that is where the departments are going to figure out how they're going to provide funding to you as a student. So if you see, for instance, and it's a year out, which is also kind of wrap your mind around it. So those of you who are seniors, rising seniors, you would need to apply this fall. And I know it's like, oh my gosh, fall is like 2 months away, right? You need to apply this fall if you want to do fall 2021. Now, it depends on the program, but traditionally the programs want the application almost a year in advance, and they make a decision typically early spring, and then you make a decision by April, and then you would start the following fall. Now, there are some exceptions. Again, some programs do rolling admissions, for instance. You may be interested in a certificate program where you can be admitted maybe 3 weeks before the semester starts. So it does depend on what program you're looking at. Some do spring admissions, but all programs do fall admissions. I would say that's across the board. But some may start summer too, if you're looking at more business-based programs. So that structure will vary slightly. Know your budget. That's why I say if you're going to apply to grad school, make sure that you want to apply to that school. The application fee for Virginia Tech is $75. Sometimes we do have application fee waivers based on certain categories, so I always encourage students to browse that first to see. Sometimes departments are willing to pay the application fee for a given student, so it's always worth exploring. And if you're looking at other schools, I always recommend applying to more than one school. So while I love VT, I chose VT, I applied to 8 other schools, okay? And then I was able to make a decision, right? You don't ever want to apply to just one program at one school. To me, that's too much wishful thinking a little bit for me. And I'm, again, come from a math background. I'm like, yeah, I got to apply to more than one place, okay? So make sure you apply to more than one school and make sure it's a school you want to attend. Usually you'll get email confirmation of when your application materials go through. It's good to know that because if you have issues with anything, if something is not uploading right, then you need to reach out to that graduate school to ensure your application makes it by the deadline. And if you are rejected, you can ask why, see how you can improve your applications. And most importantly, we hope you get accepted. And if you're accepted without funding, again, depends on that timeline, because if you know the information early enough, you can be eligible for different funding sources. But if you find out, let's say you applied in March for a program and you want to start that following fall, well, by the time you get the decision in March and April, some of the other opportunities, the deadlines were in March. So then the faculty won't know, oh, I have this great student that is coming into my program. Let me make sure that I can find some funding for this person. So it's really important to start doing that research as early as you can. And I always encourage students to just get a spreadsheet, start simple, have the school name, the website, and what are the requirements of the application process. So you kind of can have a map, a visual map of where you want to apply. Otherwise, in your mind, you're going to keep saying like, okay, I need to do this for this one school. I need a recommendation from Dr. Ha, and I need somebody else to write me a letter. And it's kind of trying to piece together everything. So I recommend just kind of having it organized in a way that you know your deadlines, and then you can communicate that to the persons that you want recommendations from. And they'll know, okay, well, I see that Tyreme is going to apply to this program at this school. Let me make sure I have a letter prepared for her. And it gives them time to write a great letter for you, which is also important. So make sure that you organize in a way that is colorful and means something to you all. All right. So again, think about the program, faculty, quality of the research. I mean, Virginia Tech meets all of those different things, but again, I want you to apply to other schools as well. If you're trying to do something and they don't have the equipment there, that can affect your research. So if you are, I don't know, interested, somebody say computer engineering. So if they don't have access to some different servers, I mean, it's kind of hard to do computer engineering if you don't have that access. Time and requirements toward degree. That is super important. I know sometimes we have those outlier students that may take a little more time, but I think it's reasonable to say, can I receive this master's degree, for instance, in 2 years? Can I do it in a year and a half? That's not impossible for some programs. How many credits? Okay, it takes me 30 credit hours to get a master's degree. And I know some of you think of undergrad, you like, I can knock out 30 credit hours quick because I take 18 or 21 at Virginia Tech because y'all have like 5 majors and 10 minors at Tech, right? So, right? But you want to make sure like that you are able to get that degree completed in the amount of time that's reasonable. And if you're looking to go directly into a PhD program or another doctoral program, then you want to make sure that you can complete that degree in 4 to 6 years, okay? So I think that timeline is important. If you meet people in the program, they're like, whew, I ain't finished yet. It's taking, you know, everybody takes on average 8 years. Don't apply, okay? I mean, it has to be some reasons and motivations behind that. Sometimes the students may not be completely upfront with you about what some of those reasons are, but you want to make sure that it is a healthy and healthy program, I would say, for you and your well-being, and also for you to continue to grow educationally. I think that's important. The numbers of students in the program, some programs are sort of large. It really depends on if it's online or if it's more in person, but typically here, the programs are fairly small, I would say. We do have a few computer science programs that are a little larger, or like master's information technology. Think about where their graduates go. So if you're going to grad school, why do you want to go to grad school? What are you going to do with this graduate degree? I mean, mine sits at home, is a little dusty right on my table, but what are you going to do with that degree? How do you want to use it? So are there graduates going into industry? Maybe you're like, yes, I want to go into industry. Do you want to work by yourself? Do you want to be a business owner, go into consultant work? Do you want to do nonprofits? Do you want to go into academia, or maybe do a blend of different things? And it's okay not to know. If you, like I said, you asked me when I was younger, I wanted to be a high school math teacher. Okay, that is not what I'm doing. But that's what I wanted to be, right? When you asked me at different stages in my career. So it's okay for that to change, but you want to know kind of where do students go once they have that degree from that program. So you kind of get a feel of if what your goal is very far away from what several students do, there might be another program that might be a better fit. Or maybe you do dual master's degrees. We have students, again, that do maybe a master's degree, and then you decide to get a certificate to complement what you're working on for that master's. So maybe you say, I want to do something in data analytics because that's a great topic, or I'm interested in public health and I want to add this to my biology interest. Then that way you get the full experience as a graduate student. And also thinking about the availability of funding and financial aid, I think that's important. And most of that really ties into the deadline, I would say. For the initial kind of distribution of funds from departments. So looking at that deadline, don't go by the deadline you see on the main pages of any school. Go to the department deadline, read their webpage, and see what deadlines you see. And that'll be the first one. So if it looks early, it's probably right. If you say, no, that's like beginning December 1st, they love putting about the holidays. Don't ask me why. It's always December 1st, December 30th, January 15th. And it kind of catches some students off guard because you're like, I'm with my family, I'm trying to enjoy these different things, but make sure you make note of those deadlines. So for application, of course, your personal information, your name, address, those type of things are on there. But one of the things I would encourage you all is to start working on and thinking about is your personal statement. So that's probably the hardest thing for people to do, because it's writing about yourself, right? You're writing about who you are and why do you want to pursue this graduate degree. And it's hard. I can't put into your statement why you want to pursue it. Only you all know why you want to do what you're trying to apply for. But once you have that sort of outline and template of that personal statement, then you can personalize it for the different schools that you plan to apply to. So my personal statement, as you can imagine, I sometimes think I'm a part-time comedian. So I had a couple of jokes. I'm very corny, I admit that. I put a couple of jokes in mine, and when I met with some of the committee later, they were like, oh, I remember your statement, you still can't swim, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, and I was like, no, I still can actually, right? So I wanted them to remember my statements because they're reading hundreds of them. And I wanted them to see a little bit about my story and my motivation and just a little bit how I grew up and why I became interested in math and biology, okay? So once you have that statement, it's not gonna be perfect. I worked on my statement. I had at least 10 versions, 10 drafts. I had different people read it. So I don't know, you can people send me their statements too. If you want me to read it, I don't really know you that well, and I can say, well, tell me a bit about yourself. What did you want this information, what did you want this piece of this document to convey? Did you want it to really show that these are the reasons that you wanted to pursue this grad degree? Do we feel like maybe something is missing? So really reach out to your family. Always going to tell you it's great. So I would say other people, you have close friends, someone that can really be transparent with you about things. So I always ask students, like, you want the real version? I'll give you the sugar-coated one, but then I really do want you to have the best version. So if I'm like, hey, let's start a document in Google Doc, like, students know I will go that far with you and we will work on it, add comments, and make sure that it is the best version that you want to use. So I've done it for several undergrads here who've gotten to grad school, like wherever they've chosen to go to grad school. Because I think it's an important process to really think about, you know, writing about yourself on paper. So there's no right or wrong way. Get the thoughts out. It's going to be rough, choppy. It's okay. Just get it started and then get feedback from other people and work on improving that. And then you can use it again for several other pieces that you may need in the future once you have that. Okay, letters of recommendation. Don't have all of them from the person that can add the same perspective to you, okay? So you think about it, right? You have 100% of you that is awesome, okay? You need each person to write about 33.3333% of you, okay? You get 3 letters, okay? So you wanna make sure to talk about different dimensions of who you are. So someone can talk about, wow, you know, Lily is such a leader and the way she worked in her role with the center and so forth. And someone else can say, well, in the classroom, I saw how she was able to take initiative and so forth. Or maybe you have an outreach or service capacity that you want to highlight in your application. So it's not just really about the academic work, because most, you know, you're all students, you can pretty much learn what someone teaches you, right? But you want to take it to a next level. They want students that can add a different dimension to their program and say, wow, this was a successful person in our program. So make sure you ask for letters, recommendations in advance. Of course, transcripts, test scores, they've kind of changed their requirement a lot. So it's really going to depend on what program you're applying to. Some programs no longer require standardized testing. Sometimes they'll waive the testing. So if a student has a certain GPA, if a student has certain work experience, so that'll sort of be case by case. But a lot of the master's degrees don't require the GRE. A lot of the PhD programs do. But at Tech, again, a couple of departments now have waived completely the GRE, or they've made it optional. So if you see it as optional, that means you can opt, right, to take it or not. But once you make that list in Excel of all the different graduate programs and graduate schools that you're looking at, if you notice that 6 out of your 10 require the GRE, then that means you go ahead and make plan to take the GRE, right? But if you have the programs, you see only 2 schools require the GRE and 8 don't, then you say, okay, maybe I don't need to spend money on the GRE right now to pursue the next step in my graduate education. Okay, so that's why it's important to first look at the schools and the programs and see what they require, because if they don't require it, then you don't want to spend $200 on a test and send your scores out. They're good for 5 years, but again, you may not want to do it right now if it's not the timing and you don't need it. Your resume, I found also working with a lot of the undergraduates here, not everyone has a resume. So make sure that you start creating one and get feedback on it. I had one she was paying someone to do, and I said, girl, if you don't send me your resume, I'm like, you paying how much? I didn't make her pay me. Of course, I don't take money from students. I was like, let's figure this out. And her resume was perfect after. They just need a little bit of tweaking to make sure that it, again, showcase all the different things you do. So make sure each semester, for those of you who mentioned you're like sophomores, undergrad goes by fast. Like, and those of you who just recently graduated, it may seem like it was long, but it goes by fast. So you may want to set a time, put in your calendar each, like once a semester, to update your resume. That way you don't forget anything that you did. Because, right, trying to think back on things you did freshman year, you're like, I think I was president from 2012 to 2013. Maybe I was treasurer. I don't know what I did. I was a member of something, right? You want to make sure that you regularly update it. And also, that'll help you think about those classes that you excelled in and certifications and other things, so you can get letters of recommendation. If you are an international student outside the US, then of course we require a few things like visa documents and so forth. For decisions, again, each program is different. So starting early is always of advantage, because then you can make that relationship. And I can tell you firsthand, if a program wants you, they will want you, okay? So starting early, making those relationships are very useful, because they can be the person to advocate for you getting into the program. Again, I've seen students who have a PhD now that started with GPA below a 2.0, right? So it's, again, none of these things are factors in your success necessarily, but having that drive and making sure that you're willing to kind of put yourself out there. And I always tell people, the worst thing you hear is a no, right? And that's not that bad, because you can't hear a yes or no if you never pursue something. Okay, so we kind of got to push back and get away from a fear of rejection. Okay, we have to do the application. We're going to have to put our best foot forward and do the best we can. And then from there, allow for things to move in the way it can. But you can't have any movement in anything if you don't do anything for it. All right, so test scores if needed, a well-written personal statement. Sometimes it's helpful if you have previous research and internship experience. So for those of you that still have some extra summers between now and when you graduate with your bachelor's degree, consider doing a research experience. I know in the STEM fields that's fairly common. And right now you can probably find people do informal experiences. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a 6-week, 12-week program. You may take a class at Tech that's more research intensive. It looks a lot of different ways, but that does help your application as well. References are important. Some programs are looking for different things. Some programs are looking to diversify their program. And again, it can be by having more women applicants. It can be, you know, women are underrepresented in this given field. It can be because of your cultural experiences or influences that you have. So whatever makes you who you are, right? They are looking for those type of things from the program, because you add a different perspective, again, to the way they teach the information, right? And also what you do with that information and how you share it out with others once you've completed your degree. So some preconceived notions I usually hear about people from graduate school is, you know, why would I want to go back to school? I don't have time. Undergrad took long enough and I have to go back again. Honestly, graduate school goes by fast as well. Like, those 5 years flew by. I probably had like 2 gray hairs to show, probably gained about a good 20 pounds in grad school, but you know, it was time to do what you need to do. And I think you still will find that balance as you found it as an undergraduate, or now that even if you're working and doing work and graduate school, you can find that balance that works for you as well. Some people think they can't be involved. A lot of our grad students are super involved, whether it's through university leadership, if it's through their own social organizations, or through other community events. Also with grad school, your timeline may be different. If you're doing it part-time versus full-time, if you're going to classes in the evenings and you're not going to classes during the day, will I really have to be working on this same project for 4 to 6 years? And sometimes that seems like, whew, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around working on a project, but that's why it's important to make sure that you have that match with the program, okay? Because it's gonna have to be something you love. Like, I love my cells, I love the fungus that I had to work on. I really like the people in the lab I work with too, right? And I love my advisor and so forth. So it was something that I could be committed to, because I'm like, this is gonna be a project that I can really make some advancements in, right? This is something that I can do in the field that's novel and innovative, right? So think about what you can add to that field that you're interested in. Some people think about grad school, I only can be a professor. Oh, I only can teach in the classroom, and I'm going to deal with students like myself, like, right? So that can be the case if that's what you want to do, but you can do so much more with a graduate degree. And I didn't think I was going to go into administration with a PhD. I didn't have a PhD in administration, right? But that's the path I ended up taking, right? So a lot of the skills that you get in grad school, they really are transferable in a lot of different ways. So it's okay, even if you do your first year of grad school and your goal changes. That's natural. That's going to happen as you have different courses, you meet different people, then you're going to slowly evolve into different goals that you want to have. I don't think you have to know exactly what you want to do. Like you can, as long as you somewhere, like you're in the grass somewhere near it, you may shift left, right. It might be some flies over there, some bees over there. You're like, no, let me shift this area. That's totally normal. It's a whole like movement and dance that you're going to do. But once you find your niche and find out what is your space and what you want to do, you'll know when that's right. You'll read that one article or you'll take that class with that person. You're like, this is it. This is what I'm interested in. So graduate school is kind of one of those ways to help showcase that. And I know a few you mentioned, sometimes people are thinking grad school versus medical school. I hear that a lot for students whose major kind of fall right over those lines. And there's pros and cons. I got friends that went to med school and I got friends who went to grad school, right? Or another type of professional school. It's really a difference in sometimes funding. I think it's a difference in timeline. Now, no, we're not gonna talk about where people are out 10 years out, who makes more money here or there, right? Some built houses, some bought them, right? It's all different stages for everyone. But I think at the end of the day, everyone enjoyed what they do right now and they took the appropriate path for them. Okay, so sometimes with med school, I have friends who apply for that. They still end up getting a master's degree until they were admitted into a med program. So sometimes they go into grad school kind of as a holding space until they figure out or get admitted into that medical program, or they do a lot more certificates and certifications until that point. While graduate school, you know, you have that funding, you're not taking out loans necessarily. So again, looks a little different. So depending on what you want to do. So I tell people, like, maybe they say, oh, I want to help children. That's great. You want to help children. Do you know how you want to help children? Do you want to have direct contact with students? You can do that still as a graduate student doing research studies, right? Or do you say, I want to practice medicine with children, right? So all of those things look very different. So I think it's sometimes talking out and communicating what vision you kind of have for yourself, that you can allow yourself, like me or Dr. Ha, to be able to let you know some of those different routes that you can take. And so then you may say, okay, I definitely don't want to work in this certain setting. And then you may determine that there's another option for you that may be more suitable. So tips for graduate school admissions: start early. Again, it looks a little different if you've already completed your bachelor's degree, or if you're an employee here and you wish to get into a program. It depends on, we have, again, options for students who don't necessarily want to start in a program, want to do non-degree, you just want to take a few classes, or you say, I know I want to do a certificate. Again, looks a lot of different ways, but definitely starting early so you can know what those options are. Make a plan. I think having things, again, in our minds, you're like me, I'm a thinker for days and I can think on and on and on about what I need to do, what I think I should do, but kind of having it written out is going to be a way for you to also make a commitment to yourself, right? My plan is to apply to grad school or professional school or whatever you want to do. And I think writing that kind of is, again, a way for you to confirm that and commit to that, okay? And write. You're going to have to write that personal statement. No one can write it for you. Don't plagiarize it. Okay. Write it yourself, okay? And I think, again, let your voice come out, your tone, right? And who you are. Find out the requirements. And sometimes there are flexibility in certain requirements, and it's nothing, no harm in asking. So if you think there's a question you have about a program and you see maybe they have that every applicant must have 2 years of work experience, they may be willing to say, you've had 1.5, it's fine, you know? So again, ask those questions and see if there's any flexibility on any requirements, so you know if they're rigid or not. I think also for grad school admissions, don't underestimate the importance of connecting with others. You all have a strong connection because you are in some sense VT affiliated, whether it's through Dr. Ha, whether it's through the Facebook, or now with me, since you all have met me today. But make sure that you connect. And even if you don't know what you need from people right now, I always tell people, once I meet you one good time, like, good luck getting rid of me, because I like to keep connections with people because you never know. And it's always like 3 degrees separation between like all people, you know, maybe we need more degrees right now, separation, but you just want to make sure that you take advantage of those relationships and connections that you do have. So even following up and saying, you know, I have students sometimes to check in once a semester with me and they don't need anything. They're just like, hey, just like, you know, I'm still working on this. I presented at a conference. This is where I'm at. I'm still looking at VT. I have one who's like, Dr. Lee, I didn't get this internship this summer. What should I do with my summer plan? You know, I'm applying to VT this fall. I was like, okay, go on Coursera, do you some free, do free courses, let's improve on some other things just so you don't waste time this summer, right? So you can figure out what that check-in looks like. I think it's always great to work on forming those new relationships with people. It's kind of hard, it's intimidating at first if that's not something that's natural to you, but worst case, just write the email, hit send, or schedule send if you want to take more time to think about it, okay? But it's really important to connect. And think about the grad schools need you. It's not just about you want your graduate degree. We want you all to apply as well and consider the graduate program. So it works both ways. And sometimes I have students say like, why me? Why would I get into grad school? Like, try to shift that mindset. Like, why not you? Why can't you get into that program? Whatever you decide to do, why can't you reach the goal that you now have the vision for, right? And so you can do anything, honestly, that you set your mind to. I have so many friends who do so many different things, and none of us knew we would do any of those things. And yes, we had our fun in Blacksburg, but we somehow all finished and managed to do things that we enjoy. We look back, we were like, we had fun times, right? So yeah, I think why not you, And I think, again, we all have different experiences, so try not to kind of give more value to those negative experiences you may have had in the past. Like I said, I can tell you about experiences I've had that weren't so good, whether they were in grad school or undergrad or wherever it may be. But when I really weigh out my good experiences versus my negative experiences, I definitely had way more good experience, okay? So we need you, you need us. We want you to consider grad school. And I tell people, if tech does not have what you're looking for, if it's not the place that you want to be at for your graduate school, these things are still, again, transferable to other institutions for you to still explore what's best for you. Because at the end of the day, we want you to do what is best for you. So make the most of our relationships. It's me and my advisor. His name is Reinhard Laubenbacher. So he's from Germany. And my favorite phrase of him, his favorite thing to say to me was good. He'd be like, good. And I was like, good, or like, good. I was always trying to figure it out, and that was his thing for me. So like, if I did excellent progress on my research, I got a good. So I was always looking for good in emails. Make connections with university officials, faculty and staff, your advisors, and if you choose to do research, then you'll have different committee members, but really make the most of all relationships. Again, I told you, I didn't think I was coming back to tech. I literally am director of the office that I was a student worker in, okay? I'm not aging myself, okay? So really, I didn't think that, right? But I enjoyed the work, I enjoyed the recruitment. And again, if you had told me I would have had that position for the person that was my supervisor, I would have been like, you are so funny, that is not happening. I'm going to be a math professor, right? Life change, right? So make sure you make the most of those relationships. And some of those people are still at tech, so, right? I'm glad I didn't make anybody too angry when I was here, because they're still here at tech, right? So mentorships come in different forms. I always tell people, you can't really say what would be the best mentor for you. Some of my biggest advocates my first was a woman from Chile. She was the first person I met from Chile. We still stay in touch. And then again, my advisor from Germany. So I realized people that support me and can help me reach my goal don't have to always look like me. And again, I went to a historically Black college. I came from a city in Birmingham where I felt like, people had to look like me to help support me. And I really learned quite the contrary. So once you have those kind of connections and relationships with people, make sure that you take advantage of those. Make sure you reevaluate yourself. This is one of my students. And I always ask people to make a 5-year plan. I know you're like 5 years. I'm trying to think 5 months. That's for real. 5 days. Okay. So we are all on different timelines, but you really can't move forward until you know what you're planning to do. And again, that plan is going to keep changing, but make sure that you come up with a plan. And with that plan, it's going to evolve, but at least what skills you want to work on, right? Find that dream job. See what that dream job is requiring. If they all require a bachelor's or a master's in this and that, all right, then you know what the next step needs to be if you want to progress in that given field. But you have to know what you're aiming for. You can't just be like randomly like wandering around. Some people do that. But I think it's more useful to kind of be focused in that process. Are you reaching your highest potential? You all have so much potential. I can just see it through your names and your faces, okay? Make sure that you're reaching it, okay? And, once you feel you're at the place of contentment, people tell me, I'm like, are you ever content, Sharnita, like with whatever? I always have a goal, and everyone knows that about me. My advisor, he's like, how many more titles are you adding on your name? And like we just figured this out. I was like, this is what I dream of doing. Here's my end goal. I get books about it. I read about it. I network with people who've had that path or something similar. And, you know, hey, I'm 33 and my grind is to be at a certain spot at 40, right? So make sure that you reach your highest potential. Read relevant books to motivate yourself. Make mistakes. I've made them, okay? You're gonna make mistakes. Sometimes we're harder on ourselves than other people will ever be on us, but make sure that you learn from them. I think that's what's most important. And then network. I'm serious, like networking, I think right now, take time on LinkedIn. I met this guy on LinkedIn. He was like, can we meet? You're in computational biology and also administration. We met on LinkedIn, found out we had like so much in common. And then we now message through LinkedIn and I'm sending information and so forth. So take time now. People are online. So if you see somebody that you're interested in and have a path similar to yours or what you want to do, go ahead and reach out, send them an invite on LinkedIn. Worst case, they don't read it, like, right? But if they're like me, they get the email notification or get the app on their phone and they're going to hit accept, okay? And then you send them a message. So if you need help in like how to take that first step, maybe you're shy. I tell people I'm an introvert, no one believes it, but in my heart of heart, I believe I'm an introvert. But if you need any help with that, just with time, it will become easier. So if you need any help with that little nice nudge, I give it to all my little students sometimes, just a little push, and then you're there, okay? So make sure you network. So takeaway, always be eager to learn. So much we can always learn. Do your best, and even if you do your best in a class, if your best is a C, that's your best. Don't be hard on yourself. Sometimes we can't all make A's, we can't all make B's. Don't be afraid to ask for help. If you need help in this grad application process, ask for help. There are people who can help you with it. There's enough people who've done the process who can let you know how to have a successful application. And that's what we want for you to do. And remember, you're awesome and you have a lot to contribute. I like this, I'm very dramatic. So whoever watches recording later will be like, oh my gosh, she's like singing and dancing. Luckily I'm in a seat, but yeah, if I was up, I'm always like dancing for no reason. And so anyway, so remember you have a lot to contribute wherever you decide to go. Make mentoring work for you again. Think about what you need. So even if students ask me, usually after the talk, I get a couple emails, follow a few LinkedIn things, and we connect. But I always ask people like, what do you need from me? Because, right, I know time is finite. I only have so much time, and I want to make sure that I'm able to meet the needs that you have, if it's me as your mentor or someone else. So even if you need Dr. Ha, it's like, this is what I need from you, Dr. Ha. So being able to communicate that is really helpful for those of us who like to serve in a mentor capacity. So even if you're the mentor to someone else, make sure they can let you know what they need from you. Mentoring is give and take. Make sure you have expectations. So if you're sending a document, what do you need from them? Do you need them reviewed? Do you want them to meet with you one-on-one to further discuss it? Do you want them to give you, surface level feedback? Do you want them just to give you their thoughts and opinions about the schools you're considering? Like thinking about what you need people for, I found to be the most useful thing. And that's how I'm able to really keep so many connections with a lot of people, by being intentional, right? I don't want to meet every single person everywhere. Well, no, I don't. But right, for certain people, I'm like, wow, I'm at this event, this conference. I got to make sure I connect with this person. So even if I go with a group of 5 people I know, they know I'm off and leaving. I got to make that connection. And once I make the connection, I'm going back with my friends and so forth. But make sure you're intentional about those relationships and know that it's valuable to have those connections. So again, if you're thinking about letters of recommendation, being able to know different people and say, hey, I need some advice, I need some tips. I talk to several of these people regularly. I talked to Reinhardt recently. He's opened up a new center in Florida. So he's like, hey, I just moved locations again. I checked, Sibby at UNC has a new position also. So people are always shifting and moving around. And so it's always helpful again to just expand your network. So that is it. I told y'all I talk a long time, but I'm gonna stop at 4:52 for questions or anything that you may have. So my office email is ordi@bt.edu. That will go to the Office of Recruitment, Diversity, and Inclusion. My individual email is my first name, which is not on the slide, but is my first name, which you can see through the Zoom, SHERNITA@bt.edu. I stole that when I was a grad student, Shernita at BT, because I figured they don't have a lot of Shernitas. And when I came back to work, of course, you keep it because it's through Google. So still Shernita at VT. All right, so we have a few minutes. Hopefully you found some information helpful. I know I threw out a lot to you all over the last few minutes. But does anyone have any questions? Yeah, I can act shy. And it's fine if you don't have questions. I know that happens too. So it's okay if not. And if you want to email me offline, that's fine too. But I always have to throw out at the end, do you have any questions? So it's just the norm of presenting. Yeah, Harissa?
Yeah, so I found it interesting how you like began in like mathematics and then you went, even though it is like related in a way into computational biology, and though like those are related, I'm kind of curious like if you have any insights for those who are planning to go to grad school and it may not be like the exact like major that you had in undergraduate, like any advice?
So advice on shifting your graduate major, or which shift? I want to make sure I answer your question right.
Yeah, like for example, like I guess in my case, it was like public health, and
Okay.
I'm like considering something like mathematics.
Okay.
And so I'm like, what do I don't know. It could be anything, but it's just like if there's any like advice, if it's not like, you know, like a consistent degree of study.
Mm-hmm. So, yes. So if you're, let's say, okay, for your example, specifically public health, and let's say you want to shift to math or another interdisciplinary type program. The good thing about public health is it's pretty foundational, I would say, and it's relevant in so many other disciplines. So it's really going to be a matter for you to play up the courses that you took as part of your curriculum for your public health degree. So that'll be the trick. So for your public health, have you taken any math classes? Now, if you've taken no math classes, then yes, it's going to be a little difficult to apply for a math program. But now if you look for a master's in public health and then have a data focus, then you'll be able to take some of those computational like courses and no one will have that expectation of you. So I think for some of the traditional fields like master's, specifically master's degrees in the hard sciences, I would say, they're going to have the expectation that you've taken a certain level of undergraduate degree that directly correlates between the two. So for a biology major, if you want to do a master's in biology, I wouldn't have probably been admitted into a master's of biology program having a bachelor's in math. But I can get into an interdisciplinary program that likes students that have a variety of different backgrounds. So checking out the program, we can look through the list, Harissa, in more depth to figure out, you know, and once we look at your transcript too, you know, we can see what courses you've taken a lot in, or maybe there's something that you want to take more of in graduate school, and make sure that is conveyed in your statement. Because if it's not in your statement, I always tell people to address everything in your statement. So if there's a gap in your educational history, if there's a grade that you made, you know, I don't think everything has to be in a negative tone. So I've kind of found ways to help students describe certain things so they kind of like addressing it head on versus leaving people who don't know you to just make their own conclusions. So you want to make sure that you put as much as you can. So if your motivation is to apply this public health background to whatever field you're interested in doing next, then you need to make sure you clearly outline why, right? Is it because of the class? Is it because of what's happening nationally or, you know, globally right now? Like, and everybody can play up different things for their motivation. So yeah, so I can, you know, we can talk about doing that. That was a great question. Okay. Anybody else? So I'm trying to see my screen. It shows me 5 people at a time. Okay, Lily?
Yeah, so I had a question. So when you're applying to grad school, what experiences are they looking for on your resume? Like, I'm sure it's important to include like leadership experience that like for me, I guess I would include like leadership experience I've had in undergrad, but like, are they also looking for, I don't know, like internship experiences I've had, or even like relevant coursework? I don't even know what relevant coursework. The thing
I tell people is like, so I will pull it up on here, but it's been too long, so I open my file up. But I even share with students sometimes. You make your own categories for your resume, right? Mm-hmm. It is no standard resume. So for instance, on mine, like at first I used to have a boring one. Like I'll admit, it was just boring. It was like, here's my education, here's this. But I revamped it and I talked to my friends. I was like, it's my resume. Like, let me put what I want on it. So you want to say maybe commitment to diversity. That's a topic on mine, right? Commitment to diversity, commitment to service. You define a commitment to STEM education, right? And so there may be different service projects you participated in, right? Maybe you've worked with a summer camp in high school, and you maybe work with this organization to serve meals and so forth. And so sometimes I think bullet point listing things under just like service, bullet, those don't necessarily really elaborate on why you even included it in your resume or your CV. So I would say define your own categories. Internships definitely should be listed. You may want to put it as research experiences or /internships or academic experiences, learning moments, or like you define the categories. And so when people review it, they're going to look at it in the context of these subject, like these headers that you pick. And again, I know it's normal to say education, certifications, relevant courses, extracurricular activities, but you can again add your own kind of magic, because you may have one student who did broke several records in athletics. So I made sure she played that up in different ways. And also she did a lot of service. She helped build houses and so forth. So you want to make sure you include those different things, but also finding the appropriate places for it so it doesn't get lost. Okay, so think about some things you're committed to, and make your own categories. It doesn't have to be, don't follow the path. Be your own, do what you want to do. I have a twin, we're so opposite. So she does her own thing. I'm like, you are so boring. She's not boring though, but we're opposite. I'm like one extreme and she's like, not that extreme. All right, good question. I think Sarah had one, maybe. Did you have one, Sarah? Okay. All right, awesome. All right, I guess last call for questions. It's 5 o'clock. And now that I enjoy spending more time with you, I have to run to daycare by 5:15. Otherwise, my 3-year-old is going to be complaining about being hungry and left in the sun, So.
So, Dr. Lee, I have a friend, and this is just some advice for other people. You might be able to move from a doctoral program or a master's program to another one if you don't like it. Is that possible too? Like,
yes,
I know.
Yes. So yeah, we do have students. We have so I tell you, we have forms for everything. Okay, so let's say you apply for one program, one campus, and you're like, I want to switch campuses. You're in one master's program, it's not the right fit for you, and you want to go to a different master's program. You meet with me as well, and I'll make sure we get that process and get that complete. You start in a master's program, you decide you want to continue on and get your PhD in that same discipline. We help students do that as well. You may be enrolled in a doctorate program. I'm going to go all examples. You're doing a doctorate program, then you say, no, I actually changed my mind. I just want to get a master's degree, right? Again, plans change all the time. Sometimes I have students who shift from one doctoral program to another doctoral program because it's not a good fit. So that's why it's really important to do that background work ahead of time. And for some students, getting a master's, it feels right for them to do that first. For other students, I tell them, I have some who's like, well, I need to do a master's, but my end goal is to get a PhD. So I always ask them, like, then why are you going to apply for a master's program? Like, you're just as competitive for a PhD program right now, if that is your goal. If you want to add 2 years or a year and a half on to get a master's, that's fine. But some like to have just that wiggle room to see the experience first of graduate education. So again, it's very much so based on the individual. So for me, I was all in. I'm like, well, I'm here for a PhD. Okay, let's do this party. Okay. And then you figure out what you're there to do. And my program didn't offer a master's. So I didn't have an option. If my PhD plan didn't work out, it was like, you just got a lot of credits that go to absolutely nothing, right? So sometimes people do like to have a backup plan, but that's why it's important to really have that relationship with your program so that you can, make sure that you're feeling comfortable and that you feel supported. And after the first semester, if it's not right, or maybe midway through, if your GPA is low that first semester, we do academic coaching, so you won't get kicked out of the program. The first semester, if your GPA does fall below 3.0, you have an opportunity to get that GPA up the next semester. Again, it looks different for every student, but we are able to provide support regardless of whatever option or like thing that happens for you. So I always tell students, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, you're not the first one, you won't be the last, like, don't be hard on yourself, we will figure it out. And then once they finish crying or whatever it is, we like sort it through, and then they're happy and they're like, hey, you know, they're back good, right? So I think it's just make sure you communicate what you need. Because like, again, I sort of have 6,000 students, like I can't search through the list to see what every student needs. But if you send me an email, then yes, I can help make sure that I follow up with you and make sure that I can best serve you with whatever needs you may have. So yeah, so there's ways to move around. The musical chairs. Okay.
And that also happens with students who end up like having families and whatnot too, right? Like,
yeah, you also can take leave. That's sort of different too. So if you need to take a leave of absence for a period of time because life happens, you can do that as well. If you need to defer, that happens. I didn't mention that, but if you get admitted into a program and you need to defer another term or push back your admissions, let's say you got admitted for fall 2020, but you need to wait till spring 2021. We have students deferring right now, right? Or if you need to defer for next year, or you need to say, I've started as a student, but I need a semester off. You just gotta make sure you put in the appropriate paperwork. That is my like disclaimer, bold and underlined, because otherwise you have a thing with credits and somebody say, well, I thought they were a student and they didn't tell me this. So make sure you do things the right way through the right process so that everyone knows exactly what you're doing and what your plan is. Yeah, so that's, some students have many life events. We have several who have students. I have students who had, you know, decided to start a family during grad school and then went right back to class the next week. Like, and I was like, you know, we have options and ways that you don't have to do that, you know? But again, sometimes if you don't know that, right? Or it's a cultural shift and so forth, then you just keep moving and you didn't know otherwise. Yeah, so just making sure you know, again, who to contact for questions, and it's no silly questions, like, you know, we'll figure it out. Okay.
All right, last one before you go. Sorry.
I'm sorry, asking you first. Like, do you have no?
Just a reminder too for people, like, to make sure to fill out FAFSA, right? And then to see what scholarships are out there, because grad schools also have scholarship programs for students too, right?
Yes,
So,
yes. So make sure you do your research because some of the programs, some of the funding opportunities, I would say, sometimes you can independently apply for different fellowships depending on what discipline you're in. So there are some through like the National Science Foundation, some through GEM. And so again, if you want me to talk about those different ones, it does depend on your discipline. But I have some students who, again, I meet like 2 summers before and they're like, I want to apply for this funding to work. And again, it's a great way to get engaged because you meet with faculty members and you say, hey, I'm interested in applying for this funding and I have to talk about what my research project would look like. And so by the time you put in this much time and effort with that faculty member to map out a research project and you apply, at that point, they're like, well, I need you as a student. Like, we're committed, we're all invested in what this research project can do. You're working on preliminary work and so forth. So you can apply for different things or have faculty members nominate you. That's another thing that's slightly different. There aren't so many individual scholarships that like students apply for themselves, but having that faculty member who can nominate you for that is important. Because I received emails this week from a student who's like, hey, am I eligible for this? And I was like, you would have been, but once you start grad school this fall, you're not, and the application period was in March. So again, making sure that you look early. Sometimes the programs may not know about things. So I've had several students encourage the program or that faculty member and get that person to do it for them on their behalf. So the relationships are important. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me today. I had a great time and I look forward to, again, feel free to contact me and I look forward to helping you all decide what's best for you, okay? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you.